What is up, friends? We're doing a quick little emergency video here, halfway through a job. But without further ado, grab a cup of coffee, sit back. I'm Paulie, and this is Paulie's Power Hour. Alright, so like I said, you're catching me in the middle of a job here. I'm working on the Caddie. There she is in all her glory. The other day I was driving, and under light acceleration, under light load, I heard something that sounded like a rod knock. Like a very hollow tap, 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 tapping sound. But it went away once I got above quarter throttle. And then at the next light, I gave it more gas, didn't hear the sound at all. So that tells me it's not a bearing. If it was a bearing, it'd be doing it all the time. And that's bad. That's usually an engine rebuild. So I started doing some Googling and started looking around, and I figured it was probably a lean condition of some sort and a spark knock, causing the bottom end to become unbalanced and just pre-detonation is what we call that. And that led me to a Cadillac forum where a mechanic mentions working on these in the 90s, and a common problem is the EGR valve goes bad. EGR valve is this guy here. And what happens is that causes a lean condition, which causes spark knock. So what's the EGR system? Well, I'm going to read it to you here. So basically what this does, it opens and closes. Let's get in here real quick. Alright, so this is where the EGR valve goes. This is exhaust, okay? And what happens is the computer sends, there's a solenoid that goes here, sends a signal to open up this vacuum. The valve opens, and it allows exhaust gas down into this hole, down into these holes here. Let me get my light. Down into these brass tubes down here in the intake manifold. And yeah, so that's what it does. Exhaust gas for circulation is what EGR stands for. So, all models are equipped with a system which consists of a metering valve, a vacuum line, blah, blah, blah. Exhaust passages. The EGR valve is controlled by vacuum, which opens and closes in response to vacuum signals to admit exhaust gases into the air-fuel mixture. The exhaust gas lowers peak combustion temperatures, reducing the formation of NOx. The valve is closed at idle and wide open throttle, but is open between the two extreme positions. Too much EGR flow at idle, cruise, or during cold operation may result in the engine stalling after cold start. The engine stalling at idle after deceleration, vehicle surge during cruise and rough idle. If the EGR valve is always open, the vehicle may not idle. Too little or no EGR flow allows combustion temperatures to rise, which could result in spark knock, detonation, engine overheating, and or emission test failure. Okay. So how did I get here? I'll tell you how I got here. I started looking at vacuum lines. I found a bad vacuum line. I started pulling it all apart, and where the heck did it go? Anyway, I broke one of the vacuum nipples off of my EGR solenoid. So then I started looking down into the manifold, and I saw that the manifold was dirty. And I said, well, crap, I might as well just pull the throttle body. It's 3 bolts and a couple of hoses. So I pulled that off. I started cleaning it. And I said, you know what, let me check this valve. And let me show you how to check an EGR valve. So one of the most handy things you could possibly have is one of these Mighty Vac style vacuum pumps. Okay, it creates vacuum. You can run a whole lot of things off of this thing. Very handy. I love it. You get a little vacuum hose. You can bleed brakes with it. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with it. So what I did, this is the stock one, okay? It's actually got an OEM sticker on it still. Not sure if this was ever replaced, but it doesn't look like it. Alright, so this little pintle here, okay, as you can see, it's supposed to move, right? So as I'm pumping my vacuum here, okay, the gauge, not climbing, okay, it's not retaining vacuum. And this little diaphragm isn't moving, okay? Well, crap, right? So here's a new one. Watch in here. See it moving? And it's holding vacuum. See it? I let it go, and the diaphragm retracts. Pump it up, it contracts. That's what we want to see. So that's bad. That's little or no EGR, which causes the combustion temperatures to rise, and spark knock, which is what I was getting. So, let's put this damn thing back together. So before you go to put this back together, okay, a lot of times these little tubes will get clogged up. So what I took my air chuck here, and I blew them out. As you can see, they're clear. And when you come back here to the manifold, I get flow. A little bit of stuff comes out, but I get clear flow. That's what matters. Now, as you've heard me say before, when doing this stuff, cleanliness is godliness. So, making sure all my mating surfaces here are clear. I'm going to start by putting the EGR valve back on, just because that's going to be the hardest one to get to. Alright, lay the gasket down. New valve. Take my bolts, a little bit of anti-seize. When you do this, it's important to tighten these things down evenly. You don't want to tighten one side down more than the other. And get it done as evenly as possible. Alright, so now we're going to put the throttle body back on. Always use a new gasket, unless you feel like taking this thing back apart later. It's up to you. But I always just go better safe than sorry. What I am going to do is I'm going to plug this in. The idle air control valve. Make sure I don't need to plug anything else in before that can get plugged in, I guess. Okay, so now the new gasket's in place. Hooked up, throttle position sensors hooked up. Alright, I'm going to run these down and go get my light so we can have some light under here. Alright, so we've got light. Run the rest of these down. A well-lit environment is always good. Down. Alright, now I'm going to start hooking up vacuum lines. So this one here is for the booster. this one. Throttle cable's hooked up. Sweet. Alright, so PCV valve is next. And then owning older cars, it pays dividends to have extra vacuum line laying around. Go. Alright, so that vacuum line goes there. That goes there. All my little vacuum ports have something going to them. Except for this. This goes to the EGR solenoid. Boom, 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 boom. That's plugged in, that's plugged in. Throttle cable's hooked up. Alright, this goes to the solenoid. So let's get the new one out of the box. Alright, so there's a little bracket that this goes to. First, I'm going to hook this vacuum hose up. So this goes to the valve. So I'll leave that there so I can trim it to fit. Okay. This is actually going to go underneath that. It always helps when you take the time and run your wires properly. Wires and little vacuum lines and everything else. So with that attached, really. Alright, so here we are as the sun goes down. Put the key in. Let's see what happens. Interlock light, which is always on. Comes down and idles. Alright. Doesn't sound like I have any vacuum leaks. Whoa! Hell yeah. Test drive time. Alright. Well, intake's back on. Everything's still hooked up, so we're good there. I'm checking for tools. Always look around. Okay, cool. The only tool I have is the one that's holding up the hood. I'll let the hood down. There we go. Bring this flashlight along just in case. Let's go up to the gas station and get some gas. So I've got a full tank of gas, and we're cruising. So far so good. I don't hear any strange noises. She's running smooth as silk. Everything's good so far. So I'm just going to keep going, get her nice and warm, take her down the highway a little bit, and see if that pinging, that spark knock comes back. Alright, so we're back at the house. I drove about 12 miles, which is about my commute to work, one way. When I would get to work in the morning, it would you could hear it. Give it a little bit of gas, a little bit of throttle under load, and clack, 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 clack. Crap, okay. So, I'm going to put her in reverse. Okay, I got 1 foot on the brake. I got 1 foot on the gas. Now, I did this earlier. Well, not earlier. I did it yesterday before I started this whole thing. And, yeah, it sounded, you could hear it. It was loud. So, if it does it again, the camera should pick it up. Do not hear it. I didn't hear it when I was driving, but you know, there's road noise and cars around you and everything else. So I wanted to do this test when I got home. Sweet. All right, cool. I'm happy. It's a good thing. Good things. So there we go. Fixed it. It's a little bit of research, a little bit of common sense, and a little bit of knowledge, and a book. You always read the book. Forums can be a good resource, but don't, you know, you got to do the research after you read the forum. You know, you got to look in the book. You got to see if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you? You know, oh, well, yeah, it makes sense. Lean condition, spark knock, whatever. Cool. So yeah, there we go. Get out there. Go work on your project. Like this video, hit subscribe. I'd love to have you come back and see us and hang out in the garage. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. You know, EGR is just not on this car. It's on, you know, just a lot of older cars and a lot of newer cars too. Yeah, so like and subscribe. Come on back and see us, and keep the faith.